だと思う。それと知恵を与えることのできる空間を大切にするべきだと思う。
He said that when we come to the end of our lives, getting closer to that even, he said what's important is in what way can we influence other people, and to choose to be able to be one that is a loving, caring space that you share with people and make that how it is you are with other people is what he thinks is very important.
Don't take it, don't. Don't take it, don't. Don't take it, don't. Don't take it, don't.
Shodo Harada Roshi, welcome back to the new school at Commonweal. Daiichi Chi-san, welcome back to the new school.
So happy to be here.
Yeah.
Really.
I began to say that my wife, Cheryl Patton, who's here, and I have been friends with Roshi and Chi-san for a long time. I think it's actually 30 years since we met. And I want to read excerpts from a short biography at the One Drop website of Shodo Harada Roshi, because we learn by stories. And Roshi's story is remarkable. So he was born in 1940 in Nara, Japan, to a temple priest and his wife. He was their third child and second son. 3 younger children, all girls, completed their loving family. He had a normal childhood, got into all kinds of mischief, got into theaters free to watch adventure films. The temple was poor, times were hard, there was no extra money for such things. His father was an Osho-san. He was raised in a Buddhist temple, but he wasn't interested in becoming a Buddhist priest. As a child, he was fascinated by rockets, wanted to become a pilot, later thought of becoming a psychologist because of his interest in the human mind. This plan changed abruptly one day when his father asked him to deliver something to Myoshinji, the headquarters temple of his family temple. In his words, this is Roshi's words, "It was early, so the buses were very crowded. I had to push through this packed crowd of people to board the bus, then move all the way to the back. As I did, all of a sudden I came up with someone who struck me as most unusual. He had a mysterious presence. There was something luminous about him. There he was, an old priest in robes, wearing glasses and reading a book. Yet he glowed with a type of light. In comparison, the people around him seemed so weighed down by their thoughts and cares. I stood in the aisle, a youth who didn't like Buddhism and lived in a temple only because of circumstances of birth, yet I was deeply moved by this intelligent-looking man who seemed so deep and so still, and who radiated such brightness of spirit. Why did he seem so different from everyone else? I had never met a person like this. I couldn't figure out what was so inspiring about him. There I was, having been brought up in a way I didn't want to continue, thinking of temples and priests was not appealing, when all of a sudden this mysterious person appears with all his great depth, who was obviously a priest. Why would he choose this way of expressing himself? I was so intrigued by this man and the question he was presenting to me by his presence that when the priest got off, I followed him. It turned out that this person, Yamada Muman, was on his way to Reim-in, a small Buddhist temple in Myoshinji. I followed him right to the gate and saw him go in. Yamada Muman Roshi was a Zen master in the lineage, I'm not going to say these things right, of Tenryuji, and abbot of Shofukuji in Kobe. Muman Roshi was the abbot of Reunion, a sub-temple, and president of Hanazono University, the Rinzai Buddhist University that young Harada would soon attend. Then back to Roshi's words, it was this encounter that made me realize how limited my understanding of Buddhism was. I saw there was a whole aspect of the religion that I knew nothing about. Despite growing up in the temple world, I had turned my back on its teaching. I doubt I would ever have become a monk if I had not met Muman Roshi. Because of him, I saw for the first time how the inner quality of a person can shine forth from his entire being. Briefly, he attended university, his father died, his older brother took over the temple, and he has a wonderful story about having graduated from university. He headed on foot over the mountains, through the forest, and I believe through a lot of snow. Yeah. Is that right?
High mountains.
Yeah. To Kobe, and he became a monk under Mumen Roshi. He was given the name Shodo, meaning true way. He trained hard at the temple, but he was very dissatisfied, and he still hadn't realized Kensho. After 2 more years, he sought out Mumen Roshi to ask his permission to leave. He wanted to go to the mountains to practice alone until he attained awakening. Mumen Roshi said nothing, but looked at him a few moments and then asked, "What will happen if you don't realize Kensho?" "I won't come back until I do," was the determined reply. He was given permission to go. Camping in the mountains between Hiroshima and Shimane prefectures, he sat zazen long and hard, determined somehow to break through. How much time passed he did not know. Then one afternoon, some hikers encountered him and stopped to ask, "Are you a Buddhist monk?" Answered in the affirmative, they said, "How fortunate you are to practice all day. We have to work in the world." Suddenly, it was like all my burdens had dropped off, as if someone had hit me on the back and everything was awakened within. I realized right then the mistake I'd been making, immediately went back to the monastery. That day on the mountain, I realized there was no self to be bothered. I had been crushing myself and making myself miserable, worrying about the problem of realizing enlightenment, when in fact it was found in the living of every single day. Everything would come to me, even if I did nothing and ceased worrying about my own little problems. Not to isolate myself up on a mountain closed off to everyone, turning them all away and worrying about my own small state of mind, but to go and be what every day brought to me. That was my practice and the expression of my enlightenment. Ever since I realized that, my whole life has been completely different. I know there is no problem for myself because there was no one there to feel that there is a problem. When I came back from the mountain, I knew that what I had to do with my life was to live it totally, with the purpose of bringing this crystal clear awareness to other people. And that's all I really wanted to do. That was, in fact, what I'd been doing from the beginning, but I'd stifled it in a small, egoic way. So it goes on from there, but I just, stories are so powerful that I just wanted to give you a sense of who this very great teacher is. Yvonne Rand, the late Yvonne Rand, who was at Zen Center at Green Gulch, used to come to Roshi's teachings here, and she always called him a teacher's teacher. And in my experience of 60 years of meeting teachers, Roshi is a very extraordinary presence, and we are so honored to have Roshi and Daiichi back with us. So Roshi, let me ask you my first question. You know how complicated and dangerous the world is right now.
今は世界はとても危ないで、混乱していることをよく分かってるでしょうね。
Many people feel a great deal of fear, both about their own lives and about what's happening in their different countries and in the world. But reading your history and the history of the Zen Buddhist lineage that you represent, Zen Buddhism has been through many political changes. It's been through civil wars in Japan. Monasteries that you care about have been burned down. So you see these things in a different way. You have teaching centers on 4 different continents. You teach in Germany, in India, your home temple in Japan, and up on Whidbey Island in the United States. What would be your counsel to your students, both here in the United States and around the world, about how to live through this period in the spirit of the Buddha's way?
お釈迦さんが亡くなられてもう2600年近くなります。ようやくしてここに表していると思うんです。
He said, the Buddha, who was born 2,600 years ago, at the time of birth of the Buddha, he put one hand up to the sky, another hand down to the ground, and he announced, in all the heavens and all the earth, there's only one existence. And in this way, as the Buddha said that, he was, from that time on down through today, telling us the truth, which would enable us to get through times such as these.
インドは今10神法を使ってますが、インドでは7神法と言っておられるはずです。
And of course, a newborn baby could not, in reality, walk 7 steps. So we need to see what was being taught by this. First of all, these 7 steps were representing a metaphor of how everyone is endowed with an ability to walk in every direction. There is nothing holding back anyone from going in all directions possible. And what did it mean when he was pointing to the sky with his finger was that there is nothing else that we should be depending upon or thinking is holier than we are or is something that we can use to make a life happen that we want to happen. In fact, when he was pointing to the ground, he was saying that this is how it is, that there is this one, as he had said. People are able within themselves, if they can truly see who they actually are, able to get through any difficulty by acknowledging the creative ability that we have to face every problem from within. We don't need another kind of advice. We don't need another kind of belief. All we need to do is actually realize without question the capability, the creativity of each and every human being to walk through a life in complete freedom and knowing that they are able to deal creatively with every single thing that they come into in any possible way.
しかもお釈迦さんが悟りを開かれた時に自らが6年かかって人間性の真実をやっと巡り合うことができた。だがそしてその迷いがゆえにお互いがこの世界に混乱しておる。
Above and beyond this, the Buddha took 6 years of very, very challenging practice to be able to realize this true nature that he simultaneously realized every single human being is endowed with this. And this wasn't something that was compromised. This is true of all people, and that all people realizing this is what is most important. That there is no difference. There's not one single person who is not endowed with this. It took the Buddha 6 years to be able to experience this. And that is what is most important, for us to realize that within every one of us, that capability, that ability, that realization is possible, and that is what is important.
このようにしてお釈迦さんは人間は生まれながらにして完全な人間性を持っている。ただ生まれてから後に拾い集めたデータ、それぞれが皆全て真実としていただけるはず。
Simultaneously, he realized that what is preventing us from being able to connect directly to our truest nature is our ego and our idea of our being stuck on thinking we are that ego and not letting go of that. He said, and this is what we have to learn to let go of. And when we can let go of that identity with this ego, then we are able to bring forth the quality and the character of our deepest nature. And when we are clear in that, we can see easily that any mountain, any ocean, any animal, any plant, all of that all of that is part of this one truth that we are all born into knowing and being together.
しかもお釈迦さんは最後に亡くなられる時に最後のご説法をされました。ここのところがお釈迦さんの知恵の原点です。
When the Buddha died, when he was in the process of departing, he was come to by all of his disciples, many, many people who had never seen him before, but also the animals, the birds, the insects, all of them came gathering to where the Buddha was. And why this is so important and clear to be seen is because of his great love for all beings in every single way and shape. And this is what is expressed when it is said that when we are in our state of mind, of our true nature, when we have let go of the delusion of being an ego only, then we are able to naturally give rise to the deepest wisdom that is in all of us from birth. We come like that. But because we get put into us a lot of data, because we are seeing things through our egoistic view, we don't see through our loving eyes, which we are innately born with. And when we can let go of that egoistic preference, then we're able to see everything in nature with those eyes of wisdom, which is that way of being, giving true love. And every single thing that we contact with, we live in that way of that love. And that is why it is so important to be able to realize this true nature that we're all, without any exception, born with this true nature. But the things that we pile on top of it and we carry around with us, preventing us from that, if we let go of them, then all of us will live in harmony with everything, because we are like a mirror who is reflecting everything. When we're this mirror that reflects everything, this mirror of love that reflects everything, then everything is who we are. And it's the mirror reflecting itself in that mirror. When we can feel that feeling that everything is who we are, we're one and the same, and it could only be a feeling of love that could come forth from that.
Roshi, this room is filled with friends, colleagues, many of whom have some spiritual practice, many of whom have a Buddhist meditation practice. Most of us, perhaps all of us, have not found enlightenment. What would your counsel be to us in this room and to all those who are online listening, who pretty much have decided we're not going to realize in this lifetime? What would your counsel be about the most skillful way to focus our efforts on achieving whatever is possible for each of us in this lifetime?
どう様、ここの今みんな聞いてる人たち、この部屋にはみんなは宗教家です。ほとんど仏教徒が多いし。
お釈迦様も一国の王子さんでしたから、その当時には96派の哲学がありました。座禅はそれが実感できるんです。
When the Buddha was born, at the time he was born, he was a prince in a royal family away in a palace. And at that same time, 96 varieties of spiritual teachers were alive in his country. And he had a deep doubt, and he tried out the ways and the thoughts and the ways of practice of all those 96, and still he was left with this great doubt of what it is that is keeping us from becoming our truest nature. He left the palace and he went out and he found two teachers, two hermits, and they gave him a way of practice which he was going into deeply, in which they prescribed to not think about anything whatsoever, and then to not think about not thinking about anything whatsoever. And so for a long time, he worked at this, and he managed to somehow get close to it. But then he said to these two teachers, he said, I understand what you are proposing, and I find it possible, but still I don't find an answer to what is this ego? What is this ego stuck in me, and why do I get caught on it again and again and again? And they agreed that he had found a weak point in their argument, and that they didn't have any way to go beyond what they had been teaching him. And he went for 6 years into the mountains, eating very little and having a very ascetic life. And when he had done that, even then, still, he was feeling as if he hadn't really gotten to the true point of what he was looking for. He came down off the mountain, and he was sitting zazen, and in the morning dawn, he realized his oneness with the morning star. He completely experienced it in a way he had never experienced anything before. And what was it that he was experiencing? Just like many of you, he says, have had experiences raising babies. Like a baby, he had experienced this morning star as himself. In the same way, when a baby is born, it follows its mother around, and it is connected, but it has no sense that that's a mother or that that's a person. He's not thinking about this person. This is my mother. I'm going to follow her around. We're not divided. For the baby, he is the mother, and the mother is who he is. And every single thing, the wall, the table, all of it for a baby who is just being able to discover things, they are him. They are his own face. He's seeing everything as a piece of himself, and himself as unseparated from everything around him. No mental idea, no data, no sense of an ego. And in that way, it is you become, for the Roshi, he said, took him 20 years to be able to come that same state of mind by doing zazen, or a practice that enables you to let go of that dualistic thinking, which keeps you always being separated from everything around you. It's by going deeply into that practice that enables you to know that state of mind of a baby. And this is what is important. And to be able to let go of all of the thinking about dualistic things and mental ideas and thoughts about being an ego, all of that, to be let go of that and be what we are from the beginning when we are born, without all of this data, without all of these ideas. This is the point of what the Buddha was teaching.
Roshi, I'm trying to remember the date at which you had this experience on the mountain of transformation.
He said he doesn't remember the date, but he was 21. He's 85 now, so yes.
Yeah, okay. So my question is, Roshi, what have you learned in the years, in the 65 years since you had that experience, that you didn't know at the time that you had it?
Okay. その体験のあった時から今まで
得たものは何もない。
Nothing at all.
何もないけれども、私は道場で20年だから。
He said that, no, for 20 years in the monastery, he didn't know anything. He didn't know anything about the world, anything at all. And then he met Michael. And Michael was the one who showed him how very important it is that there are these certain things that were going on in the world, the health, the young people who are called delinquents, and also the ecology. And when he heard what Michael taught him, which he hadn't had a way of picking up on when he was in the monastery, that was when he began to think about these things.
Oh. And Roshi, different Buddhist teachers have different teachings about what we could call engaged Buddhism or less engaged Buddhism. So some Buddhist teachers take strong political positions in line with whatever politics they have. And others don't take political positions like that, but I think of Thich Nhat Hanh and people like that who are engaged, but in a trans-political way. I know you've had students who, I'm thinking of one who wanted your blessing for something they were trying to do in the Ukraine in this instance. And you discouraged them, even though what they were trying to do seemed beneficial, but from a Buddhist point of view, you didn't think that was aligned. So given how complex the world is, given that there are all these political points of view, and each of us is very attached to our own, what is your teaching for your students about any kind of engagement with the world? You know, I'm quite sure that you don't particularly like the extremely political positions, but I don't know how you feel about engaged Buddhism where people are really trying to help make things better for people within their reach in a non-political way.
Well said. Michael さんがね、いろいろのたくさんの仏教徒の
私は毎月飛行機に乗ります。だから毎月、人材を探さないとダメと私は信じてます。
Roshi goes by plane somewhere every single month. He has dojos in India and in Japan and in Germany and America, and he goes to those places for the reason he wants to show and explain as answer to your question, which is to find human resources among most of the younger people who will be able to take this depth which he is proposing is important and continue it. To find people who will do the work and bring it to the people and continue what he has begun and how he goes about it. And so this is what he's doing actually, is in all the people that have come to him for doing Zazen and for doing training, they come for a week, they come for a longer time, see where does he find the people who can lead that and continue that work going. And he has found several of them, many of them, and those are the people that he gives special attention to in his training. And so it doesn't matter where it is they're coming forth from. Wherever that is, he can tell who is going to be someone who will last and continue to bring this going and raise future disciples to be able to keep that going as well. So for the educating or the creating a world for people who are in that group, he has 95 people coming to Hokuozan in Germany for a session, and 150 people coming in many different places. And he picks up the ones that he feels are really excited about the whole world and what Zazen can do for that and how that can be a benefit for so many people. And for those people especially, he gives a training and hopes to have them be the one and expects for them to be the ones that will continue this. This is his way of going about it.
Thank you. And Roshi, I believe you've given transmission to either 3 or 4 people. Is that correct?
Roshi no transmission wa 3-4 人いただいてるでしょう。Roshiの後月の行事をさしてるのは 3-4 人ぐらいでしょう。
まあそれぞれ道場やってますからね。道場を守っている人はそのくらいです。
He said that's because they're the ones who are the ones in charge of the dojos. And said he wants to build more dojos in society as well. Yeah.
And you, Chisan, are one of the people he's done this with. Chisan, what is it like for you to have received the transmission and having been a fellow monk, because you had the same teacher, Mumon Roshi? What is it like for you having a fellow monk for so many years and then gives you the formal transmission, right?
Number one, I feel really lucky.
You feel really lucky.
Yeah, number one. I don't know how I was able to come by such good luck.
Did anything change for you after he gave you
number two.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to answer that anyway.
Yeah.
By living with the Roshi and by being taught by Mumon Roshi, I know from every cell there's never an end and never a beginning. You think about things like transmission, kensho, all of these things as, oh, now I'm a done cookie. You know, I had a big experience. Guess what? Keep going. And people get very stuck up way back at Hakuin, who said, if anybody thinks because they've had a kensho experience, they are something special, they should burn in hell. Because we're so capable of thinking that by doing something or realizing something that it means, but it doesn't. There's no end to how much you need to go deepening. And I see this with the Roshi. He's always, he's teaching and he's sharing and he's bringing up all of these students, but he's never stopping for a day with his own practice. Every single moment, he is continuing deepening. And only because he can show us that are we able to see its importance. Because I often think of the Christian words, world without end, amen. There's no beginning and there's no ending. And this is true of all practice.
Roshi, the last time I had tea with you and Chisan on Whidbey Island at your zendo there, I told you that I was deeply engaged in studying consciousness. And you looked at me very directly and you said, it's fine to study consciousness, but there's something much more important, and that is wisdom. And I wanted to ask you what you meant by that.
Roshi to Maiko san ga kono mae Whidbey de shabbata toki ni Roshi ni Maiko san ga kikitai.
人はアウェアネスというとアウェアネスという言葉と何が原因か誰でも分かっているはずです。
He said that this idea of awareness is something which people born in the world can come to know and be able to be using. But he said what's more important is what is the source of that awareness? Where has that awareness come forth from? Everybody can talk about it and find things that they're being more and more aware of, but they haven't investigated or experienced what it is from which awareness comes forth.
And is that wisdom?
マイケルさん
それは
に
知恵ですかということ。
マイケルさんに一番最初この世界学校の子どもたちの登校拒否の問題
He said the very three things that you taught him about the first time he met you, about how you were doing a three-pronged project at that time for the cancer program for the young people at risk, and also for the ecological troubles we have. He said, what are the root of those?
字がはっき
Because
りと
he said it's very clear that for those three things, all of them, the source is the ego.
この世界の問題はどこにもありません。自我です。
He said there's no problem in this whole world actually, but the ego brings it in.
それに気がつくことを知恵と言います。
He said to get that, to know that, that's wisdom.
だから社会を改革するそれは不可能に近い。だけど自我を改革するのは自分の責任です。
It's not possible to get rid of all those big problems because they come from ego, but it is possible to be able to not be attached to your own ego.
私はそれを聞いてね、すべて分かった。何のために20年間挫折したのか。 よく見えた。
He said when Michael brought that up to him, showed it to him so clearly, he said, duh, what have I been looking at? Why haven't I realized after 20 years that this is where that's coming from? And when you and he brought that into being clearly seen together, he really got it.
I just want to say to all of you who are here, I don't know if you feel it, but I feel a very beautiful, strong field of energy that we're being blessed with. And I want to ask a few people who are here with us and put them on the spot a little bit. And one of them is my beloved longtime friend, Chris Desser, who I used to practice at Vallecitos with, and who's been a longtime Buddhist practitioner. Chris, what is on your mind and heart as you listen to Roshi?
It's hard to articulate it because it's a feeling.
Yeah.
And I have such a deep resonance with Buddhist practice. I have never practiced in a Zen tradition, but I practiced in other traditions. And as Joseph Goldstein, my beloved friend and teacher, said, it's sort of one dharma. And I feel like that's what I'm hearing here. And as Michael is alluding to the state of the world, to come back to that one dharma, as you articulate it, that we can move in any direction and not to feel paralyzed by the external circumstances that are, again, affecting ego in a deep way, to just say, phew, and be able to move freely. And your articulation of that today is a great gift. If I were younger, I would aspire to be one of your students, and I would hope that I could be recognized in such a way to make the kind of contribution that you're hoping your students will make.
Oh, what a beautiful thing to say.
Never too late.
I want to acknowledge one other friend and colleague, Charles Halpern. Charles was the founding president of the Nathan Cummings Foundation, and he played a key role in bringing contemplative practice into many traditions, and was the force behind Bill Moyer's creating the Healing in the Mind series, and taught contemplative practice at Bolt Hall Law School, and really has done so much for the field. Charlie, what reflection do you have listening to Roshi?
Thank you, Michael, for giving me this opportunity and for giving us all this opportunity to be with the Roshi this afternoon. It's a very beautiful moment. And as I've listened to his words, I've been thinking about my own life at 85 now.
Same age.
Same age.
Yeah.
Well, so we're perhaps brothers in some chronological sense. And I'm just thinking about what inspiration I can take from this talk about how I look back over my very limited but important for me years of practice, and how I can pull them together in a way which helps me to leave ego aside and think about how this experience can be shared with other people in the interests of a more just and beautiful and loving prospect for ourselves and for all beings.
時間はかかります。時間はかかるけど努力は
He said it takes time. It takes time, he said, but even though it takes time, we can't stop making efforts, just like exactly what you're talking about. He said, to the very, 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 very last possibility, to give it everything you've got. And that's what's most important.
頑張ります。
He said, okay, let's get this on record, right? He said he's going to work for at least 10 more years to 95. Well, he won't be greedy and say 100. He'll say 95. But he's not planning to stop now.
I just want to say that when the history of the mind-body integrative health movement and contemplative practice in the United States is written, Charlie will be remembered. He's done a great deal. I want to call on two more people. One, I want you all to hear from one of Roshi's students, who is an old friend, Kyo-san, who lives in Kansas City and flew in for this and has been really just a beautiful force. And so, Kyo-san, I just want to ask you, what has drawn you to Roshi and kept you in his community all these years? What has it meant for you?
I mean, the Roshi is dedicated to the liberation of all beings. And I can't think of a more important aspiration.
Mm-hmm.
I want to assist him in that aspiration.
Thank you. Yeah. And I want to call on Oren Slosberg, our executive director, who so strongly supports all our work in contemplative practice and consciousness. Oren, what reflections do you have?
Thank you for being here. Commonweal is dedicated to service and to healing. And they are big words, and sometimes service and healing gets confused with ego. And is it the wisdom is where you learn to hold the ego? How do those two interact? I mean, do they have to go together, or are there ways to be of service and not have it come from the ego?
Another big question.
What can I say?
That's the big question, isn't it? Yes. 彼がね、今聞きたいの自我と知恵。
自分のことを考えたら自我になります。考えなかったら社会のためになります。
He makes it sound so easy. He said, when you get yourself involved with it, it turns into ego. If you just give everything to the people in the world, not thinking about yourself, that's wisdom.
私が毎月飛行機に乗るのも待ってくれる人が。
He said, oh, that's beautiful. He said, every month, he really does, by himself, go on the airplane. And everybody's waiting for him, and it makes him so happy.
I want to come back into the dialogue. I just wanted to bring the community in, but back into the dialogue now. You've given transmission to a few people, but you also have a lot of other advanced students around the world who presumably, I know, who are also teaching. So what is the real distinction between the people that you've given transmissions to and the other advanced students who are teaching in your lineage? Are the ones who have not received transmission, are they in some sense less ripe? I've heard you use the word ripe to describe people who really are realized. So are the ones who have not received transmission less ripe than the others? Or is it a case that you're trying to establish these centers and you want to give transmission to the people who lead the centers, but there are other people who are ripe and are fully able to teach at the highest level, but they do not receive transmission?
場所を守るというのは一つの責任です。ですから責任は
He said, yes, he said, the people who are at the caring for the temples are very important because they have more effect on many people. And by doing that, that's what's important for spreading it into society. And he didn't say anything about the people who are ripening, that they wouldn't be or would be, but he said for all of those people, because they are making waves in society by teaching, that's important.
Mm-hmm. You've had a special interest in end-of-life work. I helped you start Enso House on Whidbey, which just ended its work, but you have very strong views about the opportunities for awareness at end of life. Could you say more, because all of us ultimately face end of life, what are the true opportunities and how can we best realize them when we realize our lives are coming close to an end?
まあ私はね、お釈迦さんが自分の人生をかけてだと思う。それと知恵を与えることのできる空間を大切にするべきだと思う。
He said that when we come to the end of our lives in that direction of getting closer to that even, he said what's important is in what way can we influence other people? In the same way that you were just asking about the teachers who were ripening. He said, then we have to see how can we express ourselves in a way. There's many different ways that we are with people. What space how we hold the space between ourselves and another person. It can be very strict. It can be very dominating. It can be very warm. It can be very caring. How do we choose to do that when we are around people is what is important. Even more so as we get older, we get more wise at choosing and being in those kinds of spaces with people. And to choose to be able to be one, it is a loving, caring space that you share with people and make that how it is you are with other people is what he thinks is very important.
I was once up at your center on Whidbey Island, and you invited me to stay in your little house there. And I was meditating in front of your altar, and I had this very strong image of a woman who had died from the Cancer Help Program, and she was waving at me. I don't know if you remember this. She was waving at me, and I thought, how nice. I often ask people from the Cancer Help Program to let me know if they're okay on the other side. I thought, she's doing that. So I thanked her and went to sleep. I woke up the next morning and I sat back down on the pillow, and there she was waving again. And I thought, what is this about? So I sent a note to the Cancer Help Program list and said, I don't know what this is about, but our friend who died is waving at me, and I think she wants her family maybe to know she's okay or something. Is anybody in touch with her? And the note came back that her memorial service was that day, and that she apparently wanted to convey this. Now, you had a little sign up in your, what's the name for his little house? It's called a, whatever, his cottage.
Yeah, cottage, yeah.
That said something like, up all night entertaining spirits, something like that. And so my question is, Zen doesn't believe in a soul, and yet there's this sign saying up all night entertaining spirits. And from the research I've been doing in consciousness, it looks like the cosmos is just shot full of spirits and intelligences and all forms of being. So my question is, I'm going to take one more minute to expand on it.
Please do.
It seems to me it's not just contemplative practice. It can also be a terrible accident or a near-death experience or other forms that flip you into whatever we want to call cosmic consciousness. So my question is twofold. The first part is, how does Zen understand that there is no soul, but there seem to be all those spirits that you might entertain? And the second question is, if we don't have a soul that survives death, and yet I saw her and have seen others on the other side, who is it that I'm seeing? So those are the two questions. Oh, I'm sorry. The third part of it is, does Roshi agree that in addition to contemplative practice, there are these other portals into cosmic consciousness, whether it's, a bad accident or a near-death experience, or many different portals, of which contemplative practice seems to be one. Does he agree with that?
Yeah, that's clear. Thank you.
Simple question.
これ簡単な質問でしょうね。
いやいや大切な質問ですよ。これはね、私たちはね、実のところね、おられる。
You've got a friend.
そのことに
You've
つい
got
て
a friend.
そのことについて私たちは自分という認識の上でしか見ないから見えないだけ。
He said, of course, since we're always walking around only thinking about ourselves, we just don't notice all these. He said, when you sit zazen deeply and truly, then all kinds of them appear. And they're very clear, and they're all kinds of different things you wouldn't even expect. And so many of them everywhere. And he said that exactly to the point of that, in Buddhism, there was Mokuren Sonja, whose mother was in one of the hells, where a distinctly described hell, where whenever food or water is brought to their mouth, and they're terribly hungry and terribly thirsty, it bursts into flame, and they never get anything to satisfy themselves. And he said there's just endless phenomena and beings all over, like you said, in the cosmos, in the universe, but we just don't see them because we are so focused in on what we're doing. And when you really can let go of everything you're usually focused in on and doing, you can easily be aware of all of these different spirits. It's like a no-brainer. And that it would be an example of that the Buddha would give services for the unseeable spirits. And he would have we do this every 15th of August. He would make altars we turn the hondo around because we're looking out, not in. And these people are honored with food and rice and flowers, and these are all for the spirits, like Moguren Sonja's mother, who was finally saved by Mokuren Sonja, this great disciple of the Buddha, who was able to bring her out of that terrible hell. That makes sense? Okay.
だから道場ではご飯をいただく前にまずその人たちのためにお供えをする。
That's why at the dojo we always put a little bit of our rice into a
それ
paddle.
は形式じゃなくて私たちの心の中に見えないものがいっぱいあります。だから毎日する中でそういうことが一つの表現として表しているうちに気がつくことが出てきます。
He said there's a million things we don't see with our own eyes. He said we take this rice, put it on a wooden piece of paddle, and we give it to the birds. But that's the doing of that allows us to realize the existence of these things because we're offering to them. They appear to not be there, but they are there. And so you just get to know how it is to live in a world of all of that included.
But is there something intrinsically superior to realization through contemplative practice as opposed to realization through some great loss or great accident?
Let me ask him just that.
Yeah.
Okay, I know.
Thank you.
Michael-san 聞きたいのは、深い心に悟ってる人。
別のものでしょ。
He thinks they're different, they're separate.
They're different.
Yeah.
How so?
どういうふうに違う？
もう戻ってきた人はまだ亡くなっていない。
Because people who are in near-death experiences haven't died yet.
だから、重症で亡くなる寸前の人は自分の感情の中に不安と恐怖がやはり渦巻いています。
And people who are deeply sick before death and they're really struggling, they're still caught on their ego because that's part of what's hampering their final passage.
But suppose it's a severe accident that flips somebody into a completely transformed space and they stay that way the rest of their lives. Is that different from contemplative realism?
私は交通事故で、植物人間になった人たちの治療を
Roshi has had the opportunity many years of having gatherings of nurses who are specialists in taking care of what we call in Japanese as well, vegetable human beings. People who have been in accidents where they cannot move not even an inch. And he's not coming in on the same trajectory as your question, but he's wanting to share this with you to say that when those people who cannot move for anything, they need complete care. They're alive and they have different amounts of awareness. But when somebody comes right up to their ear and says, "Tomorrow, your mother's coming to see you," then they get pink in the cheeks. And I don't think he's following up on an answer to one of your questions exactly on that, but that was his interesting answer to offer you.
Thank you.
禅の世界から見ると、お互いの心を見る。
He said, we have a body and therefore our hands can grab. We have a body so our eyes can see, our ears can hear, and we can move. He said, these are all functions of a physical body, and we have to ask, what is the source of all of those? So the source of all of those is not caught on all of the experiences of what they are all doing, but to be able to see and to recognize and to get down to what is bringing all of those forth is what is most important.
Roshi, we're in the last 15 or 20 minutes of this conversation, and you literally you and Chisan literally got off a flight from Tokyo in time to get here. We didn't know if you'd make it. So you've been traveling. I understand from Chisan that actually you rest well on airplanes and you listen to music, right? Yeah?
That's true.
いらんことを考えないから。
He said that prevents him from thinking of unnecessary things.
So I have two final questions.
Please.
The first question is, what are your plans for the next 10 years of your life? And the second question is, until you return here, what would you like to leave us with as essentially your deepest teaching on the way of the Buddha that will help us move forward without fear and move forward into self-realization?
Oh, that's beautiful.
私はね、やはり一番大事なことは悟るとか悟らないとか重要だと思ってます。
What he thinks is the most important, he said, thinking about breaking through and putting a lot of thought into doing the things like that and thinking of them as being so important and everything, he said he doesn't think that kind of equation is so important. He thinks to put too much energy and effort into that. Rather, in our daily lives, to be able to live in a world where we don't get caught on all of our conceptualizations and all of our mental ideas and our things that involve dualistic points of view and ideas, to to be at that, to live like that, letting go of all of those. And to be doing that process of that all the time is more important than holding a high goal, such as I want to get enlightened and trying to move in that direction. This is the daily practice of becoming that state of mind is what is most important. Is that clear?
Shodo Harada Roshi, Daiichi Chisan, thank you so much for being with us. It's a great joy. And we look forward to your return. May we all be well and peaceful and of service. So thank you.
Don't take it, don't. Don't take it, don't. Don't take it, don't. Don't take it, don't. Don't take it,